So in the past, open your eyes, please. So in the past, I talked about some of the fundamental difference between the Eastern culture, both the Indian culture and the Chinese culture, versus the Western culture, which is actually quite young. And how, because of the history, they have a different approach to the way they understand life. So in the Western culture, because they had to come out from the dark ages, where they were not allowed to really not allow for free thinking. That once they entered the Renaissance, they really have to overcompensate. So the focus is always on the intellect, always on the thinking mind. Whereas the Eastern culture, whether it's Indian or Chinese, they never had to do that. So they have about 5,000 or maybe even more. In the case of India, it's more like 12,000 years of development, gradual development. So they put equal emphasis on both the intellect and the experience. Okay, so it's a lot easier for the Eastern culture to learn meditation because it's part of the culture that we can actually experience. And from a physiological standpoint, it's quite different. It's really the difference is using your cerebral versus using a spinal cord, which are all equal. Okay, so last Saturday in the afternoon class, towards the end of the class, I talked about the 5 hindrances. You know, how do you actually free your mind, right? That you start to heal your mind. And I talk about one of the main hindrances is called clinging. And I talk about my own experience with my father. And if you haven't heard that, you should look it up on YouTube. It's in our channel. So just go to dennykmew.com and then you will find all the links. But in any case, so what are we clinging to? What are we attached to? So a lot of times we say, well, we're attached to a material, a yard, a Tesla, or iPhone, or whatever. Actually, not so. You're most cling to your physical existence. You're actually cling to your breath. So when we talk about freeing yourself, the hindrances, it's not an intellectual exercise. It's an experiential exercise. It's actually giving yourself a chance to experience what it means to actually let go of your breath. If you can let go of your breath, you can begin to let go of your other stuff. Okay? All right, so let me answer your question one at a time. Rebecca, during the 1 minute of standing breathing, is it okay to not have the eyes slightly open? It's okay. It's okay to just close your eye. It's okay to close your eye. I have the same problem in the beginning in that it's very hard for me to focus when I open an eye. That's kind of crazy. Why would you do that? If you open your eyes, you get more distraction, a lot less, right? It turns out that is true in the beginning. In the beginning, you really want to shut yourself away from the outside world, right? So there's a very famous story, and I talk about this in my Chinese class a couple of times in the last week. You all know about the 6 patriarchs, maybe not. So the first patriarch is Bodhidharma, who brought the yoga practice to China, completely changed the scenery, the game for both the Buddhists and the Taoists. So that's his first, and then eventually you get to the 6th patriarch. Some of you might not know, but who is actually a very interesting person. He's illiterate in Chinese. He doesn't read or write, but yet he became the master, and he is actually the one that really took the Zen meditation and make it into what it is. And so there was very very famous story where he actually was never even what's the word? They never shaved his head, so he was just a householder. He actually had to hide in the mountain because the people were going after him because they didn't think that he was a legitimate successor. But eventually he came out, and he came out to a temple and where they had a big meeting, and then some of the monks were discussing philosophical discussions because they saw the banner kind of waving in the wind. And one monk says, what's waving, the wind or the banner? And then the other monk says, no, it's the banner that's waved that causing the wind. And kind of philosophical discussion. And the 6th preacher came out and he says, it's not the wind, it's not the banner, it is the mind that is moving. Now, what does that mean? How do I answer that question, Rebecca? What is the wind? The wind is the physics. Is the sound, is the sight, is the sound, is the taste, is the touch, it's all the physics. The banner is the physiology. That's the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body. Oh, so when the physics impinges on the physiology, it generates neurology, right? So you generate all the electrical signal in your body. So what's causing the distraction? Is the physics causing the distraction, or is the physiology that is causing the distraction, or is the mind that is causing the distraction? So the sixth patriarch, he said that it's neither the wind nor the banner. The distraction actually doesn't come from outside. The distraction doesn't come from the fact that you have eyes, nose, tongues, and ear. The distraction comes from the mind. So this is very interesting. So this is my own experience that in the beginning, it's very distracting to open my eye. It's very distracting. So I would rather close my eye and I get a sense of tranquility. And that's what happens. And so if you, Rebecca, you're absolutely right that in the beginning, if you're more comfortable closing your eye so that you can focus it on one thing at a time, then it's better for you. But over time, as I do, I find that actually opening the eye allows me more tranquility. So that's just a choice. Okay, so Ming Zing asks, how do you let go of breath? So I'll tell you another story. So one time I was with my master. Actually, it was a winter retreat. So I was there for 3 weeks, and the temple was close to the outside. So we actually had practice day and night. And there was just like a handful of us, three male, and then the rest female. And the 3 male is my master, myself, and my brother-in-law. And my brother-in-law was there for the first time. And so we were doing a lying down meditation. And I had told my brother-in-law ahead of time, just don't sleep, okay? This lying down meditation is not sleeping. So, but if you sleep, don't snore, okay? So we all kind of lying down, and all of a sudden somebody's snoring. So my feet is at my brother-in-law's shoulder, so I kicked him, and he looked at me and said, I said, don't snore. He said, I didn't snore. But it had to be either you or me, because the snoring is come from a man, not a woman, right? And it come from the right side of the chamber, not the left side. So by that time, all the female monastics had already kind of got up, and they figured out that it was my master who was snoring. So I said, oh no, what happened? So one of the female monastics walked up to him, and as he walked up, the master looked up and says, I'm not snoring. So he had so completely let go of his own breath that his body started to snore on its own. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? In other words, when we talk about the 3 planes of existence, we're so attached to this one plane, this physical plane, that we think that's all there is. That if we don't do anything, we will die. Right? It's like you're taking the bus. Imagine you're taking the bus, and you think that the bus runs because of you. Actually, no. If you're not on the bus still runs. It still makes all the stops, just like it would every day. Think of your body like the bus. You just happen to be a passenger. If you live beyond the physical plane, if you live in the energy plane as well as the mental plane, then all of a sudden the body is just a vehicle. And if you let it go, it has a life of its own. It will snore on its own. I have seen it. I can't do it, but I've seen it. Okay?